Hello, you're welcome once again to this section of today's class. And today we are going to be we're now going to be entering into JavaScript. We're going to be looking at the basics of JavaScript, the basic building blocks of JavaScript. What makes JavaScript an important language in web development? Why is JavaScript very important to HTML and CSS? Despite the fact that a lot of things have changed since have changed. But why is JavaScript so important? Why is JavaScript the preferred language for scripting on the internet? What makes JavaScript a better scripting language compared to PHP and many other languages? And these are some of the things we're going to be looking at. We're going to understand JavaScript and go deep into JavaScript. And as we do that, you're going to really enjoy this class. I still remain your formidable host and your instructor, your favorite instructor, Okolo Chukwuemeka Prince, the senior ICT instructor. Enjoy as we learn. Okay? Okay, so today we're going to be looking at JavaScript. What is JavaScript? Now, first of all, we need to look at something. We say JavaScript high-level interpreted dynamic programming language for web interactivity. Now, when we started our series, I said that HTML is responsible for building the structure of a website. I said you could compare a website to a house. HTML is the block and the cement that is used to raise the house, to build the house. And then we say that CSS, on the other hand, is for the beautification of the house. CSS is for presentation. So the plastering, the painting, everything, the roofing, everything that has to do with making the house look good in the eye and testable to the eye is CSS. Then we now have JavaScript. JavaScript adds behavior and interactivity to websites. So the moment you begin to bring things like water into the house, plumbing is like an example of JavaScript. Electrical work is also an example of JavaScript. So what does JavaScript do? JavaScript brings about interactivity into web applications. HTML can produce a static website. CSS can beautify a static website to look so good, but these websites cannot really respond completely to end user interactions without the help of JavaScript. And this is why JavaScript is said to be responsible for the behavior, for handling the behavior of a website. Okay. Now, JavaScript is referred to as a scripting language, and there are two categories of scripting language. We have the client-side scripting language and server-side scripting language. Now, client-side scripting language, we say execute in the user's browser, DOM manipulation, UI reactivity, and client validation. So client-side, we are saying that client-side, it's on the user's browser. Are you getting me? Any code you write in JavaScript is not executed on the web server. The web server does not know anything about that code. Rather, it is executed on your browser. It is executed on the user's own browser. So and that's why we use it for many UI reactivity. Like if you go to some websites now, let's take a very good example let's go to a website. I would have said let me search for others, but let's just use this one that I have been using since. Okay, so now it is JavaScript that is making it possible that when I put my mouse on top here, this drop down can come out. Are you getting me? And this is executed directly on the user's browser. That's why we say execute on the UI reactivity, ability for it to react. And then also user validation. When a user is filling a form on your website, for instance, it's not everything you have to send to the server, because users are getting impatient with web applications. If you know very well, since the advent of mobile and mobile apps, users are getting more and more impatient with with web applications. So your web application has to be fast. So as much as possible, most of your validation, it is good that you handle a good number of your validation on the client side, whether it's your validation of user input or data on the client side, not on the server side, because the server side requires the user to send that data to the server first and get the response back. Now, the server side is executed on the server host. So server side is where server side scripts are executed. Like Node.js is a server side script. You can use Node.js to write a server side script. You can use PHP, you can use Python, you can use literally all the programming languages that you know to write a server side script that can execute, that can process. You remember when we were talking about forms, I spoke about the action attribute is used to point the form to where the form data is going to be submitted. So that is exactly what you do with the server side. Okay. Yeah. Now, what the next thing we have is what we call variables and data types. What is a variable? Now, in programming, generally in programming, a variable can be defined as containers used to store data. Are you getting me? Container used to store what? Data. Or you can define a variable if you want to be more detailed. If you want to be more detailed as to what a variable is, a variable can be referred to as a named location in memory, or can be defined as where a programmer stores a particular data in the computer memory for easy retrieval and usage later in the program. So that these are the different definitions of a variable. And every programming language, especially scripting languages, okay, must have support for variables, and JavaScript is not left out. JavaScript makes use of what? Variables. And variables in JavaScript are declared using the var keyword. You can see it. Variables declared via the var keyword are what? Function scope. What is function? What is a function? A function can be defined as a block of code with a name that is used to carry out a specific task in a programming language. That's what a function is. A block of code with a name and is used to carry out a specific task in a programming in a program. That is exactly what a function is. So we say that when you use the var keyword, variables declared using the var keyword are scoped to stay within that what function, and that is they are scoped to stay. JavaScript is a functional programming language. Yeah, it's a functional programming language, not an object-oriented programming language. It's a functional language. So everything about JavaScript is referred to as function. But basically, var is the standard keyword that you use for declaring variables in JavaScript. Every programming language has their own keywords for declaring various kinds of variables in the programming language. But in modern day JavaScript, we use the var keyword for declaring variables. We also use the let keyword. Let keyword is actually kind of depreciated right now, but it's still being supported for now temporarily. So you use the let keyword also for declaring variable. How do you declare? We're going to see that as we progress. We're going to see how to make use of all of that. I just need to explain all of these things. You must understand when it comes to learning a programming language. Well, now when it comes to JavaScript, you're not looking at normal HTML and CSS. JavaScript is a real programming language. So it's important that you understand the basic and underlying principles of that particular programming language, the core syntax and the logic of that very language. And if you understand the core syntax and logic of that very language, you can then from there, you can now go ahead with that. You can now use that core syntax of that very programming language and go ahead to now build upon it and learn how to use the language properly. So the var keyword is used to declare variables in JavaScript. The let keyword is also used to declare variable. The let keyword is being depreciated very soon in future versions. In future JavaScript versions, the let keyword will no longer be used. It will be totally replaced by the var keyword. And then the const keyword is still existing. The const keyword is used to declare a variable that is not going to change throughout the program. Yeah, with the const keyword, you can declare a variable and that variable is not going to change throughout the program. If you try to change a variable that you declared as constant, you are going to run into an error at the point of interpretation. I hope you know, like I always tell us, JavaScript is an interpreted language. It is not a compiled language. Yeah, we have three categories of languages based on how they are translated. Remember, your computer generally only understands zeros and ones. Yeah, that's all your computer understands. So we as human beings do not understand or flow very well with zeros and ones. So programming languages are built to enable us to write in languages that are very close to our usual tongue, our usual English language or whatever language we are speaking. And then when we use those languages and when we give it to the computer, for the computer to be able to interpret and make use of those languages that we have provided, it needs a translator. Just like if I travel to a country like China, for instance, now, and I don't speak China, okay, I need the help of a translator over there in China who can be able to understand English and turn what I'm saying to China and tell the Chinese person what I say. That is exactly what a translator is. So a translator can be defined as a piece of software that is used to convert a programmer's source code into machine code that a computer can read. And there are three categories of translators that exist based on how they work. One, we have the assemblers. The assemblers are used to translate the programs written in the assembly language into zeros and ones for the computer to be able to execute it. Now, the assembly language, of course, is not really a very much existing language as of now, but you must know that the assembly language was once a very strong language in the world. We're not really looking at basics of programming. Someday we're going to craft out a class for looking at the basics of programming, and we'll deal with that. But then you must understand that this is how it is. So as for that, that's for the assemblers. Then we now have the compilers. What are the compilers? Compilers, on the other hand, do it's a different job. They also do the same job of converting code, a developer's code, into zeros and ones that the computer can actually understand and execute. And how do compilers work? Compilers run through the complete code and they execute and they convert the whole code at once into zeros and ones. That's how compilers work. They run through the whole code and they convert it to zeros and ones. Then we now have the third category known as interpreters. Interpreters, on the other hand, they translate your code line by line. Almost all the web development languages are interpreted languages. HTML is an interpreted language, CSS is an interpreted language. JavaScript, on the other hand, is also an interpreted what? Language. Now, whenever you use the const keyword to declare a variable in JavaScript, the interpreter is going to run into an error if you try to change the value of that variable in your program. So you must know that anything you declare const in the computer in a JavaScript program, any variable you declare as constant in a JavaScript program, just know that that variable has reached its final point and can never be changed again all throughout the execution of that program. So that's why you should use it sparsely. Yeah, sometimes some of these keywords can cause you some serious nightmare when it comes to debugging them. Yeah, but it's important that you do that. Now, there are two categories of data types that we have that JavaScript support. What is data? Data can be defined as a raw fact, or you can refer to data as the most basic unit of what? Information. And what is a data type? Data type can be defined as the form in which a particular data takes. Okay, data type can be defined as what? The form a particular data what takes. Now, Java divides data types into two categories, and they are the primitive data types and the complex what? Data types. What is a primitive data? What are primitive data types? A primitive data type can be defined as a data type or a form of data that is natively and naturally supported by a programming language. Okay, that means that programming language does not need any extra effort of any kind to be able to support that particular data type. It is normal to the language. When we say something is primitive to a person, it means it is a part of that person. It is native to that person. It is known to that person. Someone like me now, I come from the southern part of Nigeria. In the southern part, I come from one of the Igbo-speaking tribes in the southern part of Nigeria. Now, when I speak, if I speak, to speak Igbo will not be hard for me. Okay, so because it becomes a primitive language to me, it becomes a part of me because of I grew up there. But when you take me to a place like Kano or Kaduna or Zamfara now, that becomes a problem trying to speak their own language. At that point, it is no longer their language as northerners, that's the Hausa language, is not a primitive language to me because it is not a part of me. I now have to learn it as a separate entity. The same thing with data types. Primitive types are supported naturally by the program, by the compiler, by the interpreter of that particular programming language or the compiler of that particular programming language. That's primitive data types. While complex data types, on the other hand, or we refer to them as reference. You can call them reference data types, but you can also call them complex data types. These data types are not, these particular data types, reference data types are not done, that are data types that are not naturally supported by the program. Okay, they usually have to go through the compiler has to go through some extra effort to be able to manipulate and support them. Now, what are some of the primitive data types that we have in Java? In JavaScript, we have the string data type. The string data type is used to support text. If you want to store a name, if you want to store user input where they enter text, you want to store is anything string, whether you want to maybe you want to store A, B, C, and you do it with a double quote. You put the string in a double quote. We're going to practicalize all of that and you will understand. But for now, just understand what I'm trying to explain to you. So the string data type is used to support. The string data type is used for storing textual contents. Okay, yeah. The number data type is used for storing integers, that's numerical data 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all of that. It's used to support that. That's integers, or floating point number, that's decimal point numbers, like pi. Like pi 3.14, those kind of things, 0.2, 0.5, 0.005, those kind of things are also part of the numerical type. Boolean is used to support true or false. Now, to you and I, true or false may not mean anything, but to the computer, true means something, false means something. It has a special meaning to the computer. That is why the Boolean data type is there. So the Boolean data type only takes two values, either true or false. Null, the null data type is an empty data, is empty, means the ability to support empty data. That is data that is not available. JavaScript can support that. Undefined, a data that does not exist at all. JavaScript can support it. Big int, when you want to support an integer that is very large, JavaScript support that. Symbols, like your emojis, the emojis that you use on WhatsApp and you use on Twitter, you use on Instagram, they fall under symbol. And also your plus, your minus, your division, your multiplication, your equal to, this all falls under what? Symbols in Java. These are all primitive data types. Then we have the complex data type. Under complex data type, we have objects. They are called complex data type because most of the time they are not made up of a single data type. You have to combine a good number of these data types to be able to form a single complex data type, be it an object. And then even arrays are also complex data type, even though they only have one data type, but they don't only carry one value, they carry more than one value. That's why they are referred to as complex data type. Functions are also complex data type because they are a block of code, okay, with a name. So they are also seen as a complex data type. So now the next thing we want to look at is that every programming language must be able to, send feedback to the end user. It must be able to tell the user, give the user an output. If a programming language, every programming language must know how to take input from the user and also be able to give the user an output. These are things that every programming language must know how to do. Now, what are some display methods? Display methods and escape sequences. Now, what are some of the methods that JavaScript has for displaying things? Console.log. Console.log is used to send information to your console. And what is your console? If you open your Google Chrome, if you are in Google Chrome now, you click on these three dots here. You go down here and click on more tools. You say developer tools. When you click here, you click on this. For some of you to open like this, you click on console. Okay, for some of you to just bring you here directly, you will just find yourself here. This is known as the console. So whenever you use the console.log to send information to the end user, console.log means that you are sending that information into the console. So whatever you send through console.log will only appear in the console. The end user will not see it. So this is usually useful when you are debugging code. That's maybe you have hosted a website live, you are making some corrections, you are making some modifications, and you do not want your people that are visiting the website to see the errors that are being popped up while you're trying to solve the problem. You can use the console.log to display results. It will only appear to the developer inside the console, inside this console. This is known as what? The console. So then alert is used to give a pop-up to the end user. Yeah, a pop-up. You go to some website, they will tell you like, "Nan, I'm very sure this website, if I enter them, they must give me," or "this is not my first time, probably they may not give me a pop-up today." I thought as much. I may not get a pop-up today because I've been on their site for a long time and they have taken note of me. But I'm a returning call. I've been going and coming back to their site all through. So they may not give me a pop-up, but so many websites. Let me try another one, maybe conga.com. So this is actually used, alert is used for an information that you want to pop up to the end user that you don't want the user to miss. Yeah, you use alert because alert actually comes up on the screen. It draws attention automatically. It's usually used when you have an information you want to send to the end user that you do not want the end user to miss. Okay, looks like all of these guys have closed their pop-up. But normally, when you enter some of these e-commerce websites, the first thing they do to you is to give you a pop-up of their latest deals so that you could patronize them. Of course, I'm not entering the website for the first time, so maybe that is why that is happening. But the alert is used for any information you want to send to the end user that you do not want them to miss. The alerts, when you pop up, anything you pop up with alert, it will come up and the user must see, because for the user to focus on the main content of that website, they need to click OK when the alert pops up. And when they click OK, that is when the alert will disappear and they can now focus on the content. So if you have an information that the user must see, you use the alert method to display it. Then we have the document.write. If you use the document.write, the document.write overrides the entire website. Yeah. If you want to clear a complete web page, use the document.write on it, the JavaScript document.write method, and write the new content. It is going to overwrite everything that is already existing on that web page and replace it with its own content. That's for the document.write. Then element.inner.html. When you want to write inside a HTML element, for example, in the form that if I wanted to write something probably inside this table, are you getting me? I may want to write something with JavaScript inside this table. Okay, I could do that. I could make use of, that is when you make use of element design. So this is used when, of course, as we start progressing, as we start demonstrating with it, you will understand how this is used. But then the inner HTML is used when you want to write into HTML tags, into a HTML tag in a web page, because of course JavaScript is the client-side scripting language because of its ability to achieve what we call DOM, document objects manipulation. Okay, JavaScript is able to manipulate HTML documents at will, so you can easily write into HTML tags if you want to. Then the prompt is all used when you need to pop up something to the user, and you need the user to provide you some form of feedback, maybe a yes or no. You use the prompts. Then we have escape sequences. We have new line, tab, escape sequences. I don't really want to dwell on this, but what escape sequences are used for is for formatting. You use escape sequences for formatting text when you are displaying to the end user. New line means that that's /n. You take what the user is looking for to the next line. That's /n. Tab /t is when you want to put what the user is entering in a table format, but the table will be invisible. You have single quotes. You use single quotes for characters in JavaScript, and HTML tags in JavaScript. You use single quotes, and you use double quotes for literal strings. When you are dealing with literal strings, you use double quotes in JavaScript, and of course the backslash. The backslash is also used. Now, every programming language has what we call built-in functions. Yes, has what we call built-in functions. What are built-in functions? Now, in some programming languages, they can tell you internal class libraries. Some can tell you runtime packages, special. These are all basically all doing the same thing. What do? They help to provide you with certain functions and methods or classes that you can use to carry out certain specific tasks. Are you getting me? On your website, on certain specific tasks that you don't need to write bulk code for any longer. That means you don't need to, what you could have needed to write code to achieve by yourself before, they provide you with methods and functions already existing. Like I told us already, a function can be defined as a name, as a block of code with a name, and it can be called, a function can be defined as a block of code with a name. This man. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue. So JavaScript also provides you with these inbuilt functions. And what are these inbuilt functions? What are some of these inbuilt functions? I was able to there are thousands of them, but I just picked up 4 and 10 that I know you would need to use from time to time. The first one is parseInt. When you use parseInt, in what you pass as an argument in the bracket is the number that you want to pass. ParseInt passes a string and returns integer value. So when you pass 42 in double quotes to parseInt, it will convert it to an integer. So when you put it in double quotes, even if you put a number in double quotes, JavaScript interprets it as a string. Okay, if you put whatever you put in double quotes, it's going to be interpreted as a string. Even if you put an operator in double quotes, to be interpreted as a string. Okay, that's for that. Then we now have the pass float. Passes string and returns a floating point number. The pass float is used to convert a string into a floating point number. Okay, you can see it here, pass float, and of course, you will not come and pass 3 here, like THREE here, and it will work. It's going to lead to an error. So whatever you're passing as a string, there has to be something that can actually be converted, that you know it is possible to convert to a number, or else you're going to have an error. Is none means is not a number. This is usually useful when we are validating user input. Now, in the days when there was no HTML5, we usually use this when you are validating user input. And is none says take if the value is not a number and returns either a true or false value to the end user. So what is none does basically is to return a true or false value to the end user if it is not a number. So if a user enters an input for you and you want to check whether it is a number and take a particular action, if it is a number or it is not, you can use the isNum method to test if what was entered is a number. Math.round, you say 4.7 rounds the float to the nearest what integer. So math.round is used to round off a floating point number to the nearest integer. Math.floor rounds the float down to the nearest integer, returns 4, returns down to the nearest what integer. So math.round on the other hand, nearest integer, we take this to here and make it 5, which is the standard rounding. While math.floor on the other hand, we eliminate the fractional part completely. That's the difference between the two. It will eliminate what? The fractional part what? Completely. Math.random returns a pseudo random float between 0 inclusive and 1 exclusive. So math.random, you use it to return a random floating point number. String in bracket want to convert a value into a string representation. So if you collected a value from a user and you want to turn it into a string, you use the string method, the string function to achieve it. Number convert a value string / boolean to numeric value. So convert value string / boolean to what? Numeric value. This one will convert a proper string or a boolean to a numeric value to 1. You can convert a 1 that was in double quotes to 1 that is a string, that is a number. Num.toFix format number with specific decimal places. So you can format, maybe you have a place where users enter price. You want to validate it in JavaScript, you can just take the number and say .toFix, because you never know what the user is going to enter. So you can say .toFix and you put how many decimal places that you intend to use, and that is it. Format number with specific decimal places. Then array.isArray. This is a function that is used to check if a variable is a valid array or it is not a valid array. There are lots of other functions, but I just gave us this, and I just gave us these few ones so that we could just know. Now, operators, control statements, and loops. Now, programming is all about mathematics. Yes, everything about programming is mathematics, and that's why we make use of what operators. What is an operator? An operator can be defined as a symbol that has a special meaning to the JavaScript programming language, and it is used to link operands together in order to return a value. Yes, that's what an operator does. I repeat myself because it's very important that you understand what this is. Especially when you have to write certain kind of exams that may ask you questions like this. I'll tell you, an operator can be defined as a symbol that has a special significance to a programming language, to its compiler or interpreter, and it is used to link operands together. What are operands? Operands are values to the left and to the right of the operator. It's used to link operands together to form an expression that evaluates to a value. An expression can be defined as a combination of operands and operators. Okay? Why? So it produces an expression, and the expression in turn must evaluate properly to a value. Is that clear? Yeah. So we have about 4 categories of operators in JavaScript. We have arithmetic operators. In arithmetic operators, we have the plus, we have the minus, we have the multiplication, we have the division, and we have the modulus operator. The plus, of course, is for addition, minus is for subtraction, multiplication is for timesing, divide is for dividing. The modulus operator, which might be new to some of us, is actually for a different purpose. It handles the division operation but doesn't bring the value. What it returns is the remainder. So because if you use the normal division operator and say 5 divided by 2, your result is going to be 2. But if you use the modulus operator to say 5 divided by 2, your result is going to be 1, because the modulus operator returns the remainder of a division operation that took place between two operands. Assignment operator, we have the equal to, okay, We have the equal to. This is used for assignment operators are used to assign the value on the right to the value on the left. That's just the job of assignment operators. Now, the most popular assignment operator is the equal to operator. The equal to operator is used when declaring variables. Is used when declaring what? Variables. That's the job of that. It's used when declaring variables to assign the value on the right hand side to the left. Okay, and the plus and equal to is also an assignment, but I advise you please don't do it. But basically, what it does is that the variable must already have been declared, and when you say plus or equal to, it will simply add whatever value you allocated on the right to whatever pre-existing value that the variable on the left already has. But I advise you please, for assignment operator, is not equal to is not the only assignment operator, but I advise only use that. When you want to do other things, just use expressions and achieve them. It helps to make your life easier. And from experience as a programmer, I know very well that this is the best way you can handle your code. Then we have comparison operators. These are used to compare the value on the operand on the left to the operand on the right. They are special operators. We have the double equal to. It returns true if the value on the left is equal to the value on the right. The triple equal to, it returns true if the value on the left is equal to the value on the right and they are of the same data type. Are we together? And they are of the same what? Data type. That is exactly what happens there. The not equal to also returns a value, or it returns true if the value on the left and the value on the right are not equal to each other. And even if they are not equal to each other, it will return true. The not equal to returns true if the value on the left and the value on the right are not equal to each other, and also these values, okay, and also these particular values in question are not of the same data type, it returns true. It will test both their data type and test the value of the data type. That is how it works. Then we have the greater than operator. The greater than operator, on the other hand, is used to check whether the value on the left is greater than the value on the right. The less than operator is used to check whether the value on the right is less than the value on the left. Okay, and we have the logical operators. Logical operators are used to check are used to test expressions. Okay, these ones are used to test operands, but logical operators are used to test expressions. You can use logical operators to compare the value on the value returned by an expression on the left to the value returned by an expression on the right. For example, the double AND operator will return true if the value returned on the left and the value returned on the right are equal and the same. The OR operator, the double pipe operator, is an OR operator. It will return true when either the value on the left or the value on the right are both return true. Okay, it will, as long as one of them returns true, it will return true. But in the case of the AND operator, if only one returns true, everything is false. If only one returns false, if only one returns true, everything becomes what? False. So both parties must return true. While the other one, both parties cannot return what? True. Okay? And then we have the negation operator, which simply does the opposite. Is if you want the opposite reaction of whatever operation you are doing, the reverse of the operation, you use the exclamation mark, which is the negation operator. Now, decision making. In decision making, we have the if-else statement. The if statement only. The if statement is used to test a single condition and take an action if that condition is true. It does not take an action when the condition. We're going to demonstrate all of this shortly. I'm just trying to quickly run through this. The if statement alone tests if an operation, we execute the block of code within its body if a true is returned, but it does not take an action if a false is returned. When you use the if-else operator, the if-else operator returns true. Okay, the if-else operator takes an action when it is true and takes a different action when it is false. When the condition being tested is what? False. With the help of if-else statement and switch statements, we are able to add a level of intelligence to our program. We are able to get our programs to act differently in different situations. Yes, and then the switch statement, of course, is used to test a single variable against multiple constants. That's what it does. Then we have the looping statement. When it comes to loops, we're talking about when we come to loops, we're talking about repetition. Sometimes a computer's capacity is usually understood when the computer is able to do one task over and over and over and over and over and over again repeatedly without making a mistake and with complete accuracy. That is how a computer is running. We have two. We have the while operator and we have the while loop and the for loop. The for loop is when you know when the operator is supposed to terminate. You have a counter. In the while loop, you do not know. But quickly, for us to understand all of this quickly, let's quickly do this classwork quickly. So we're going to copy this code and replace everything we have here. Yeah, you already know how we save this. Delete, Control S, and then what? Now we have another file called what? Script.js. This is our JavaScript because this is going to be the focus of our explanation. So we never created a file like that now. So I'm going to say file new and file, save as. When I say file save as, I'm going to go, I created a folder called JS. So I'm going to open that JS folder and I can call it scripts. Okay, and I'm going to, I'm calling it script.what? .js. Okay, you can see script.javascript file. Okay, you select it and say okay, you save it, and then you put the code there. Don't worry, we always attach our manuals to every class. This manual is going to be attached to the video, so you can also download it and also follow up with the manual. And of course, without HTML, we can't really see the effects of what JavaScript is doing. So we can copy this, our index.html, and take it here. And we have it there. Now you can see something about JavaScript. Look at something you must understand. It is always advisable that JavaScript code, that if you have an external JavaScript file, you link it at the end of after your content as well, just before the terminating body tag. Because sometimes JavaScript might, if JavaScript is loaded before now, it usually can run into issues. I have to change the location here to js/script.js because that's the name of my file. So let's refresh this page that we've been working with since. Okay, so yeah, I also need to work on my CSS. You see, my CSS, I didn't change it, so it's css/style.css. Okay, Control S, and once we have done that, that's perfect. We'll refresh now, and I'm sure we have something working now. By the time you click, this is what JavaScript can do for you. By the time you click this, enter student score from 0 to 100. I can enter 90, and automatically JavaScript calculated score 90%. Assigned grade A, distinction, performance rating. You can see this is just an example of what JavaScript can do. JavaScript just turned a simple HTML form. Let me do something. Let me try it out again. Okay, let's do someone 30, and we can say okay. Okay, automatically it does it. Fill performance rating 3 stars. So this is the kind of thing JavaScript can do. JavaScript can turn a simple HTML document into something very powerful that can run that into a complete application. It's because of JavaScript that we are able to write games in HTML. We're able to do certain kind of applications in HTML just because of the help of JavaScript. Now, what exactly is going on here? How does every of these things that we have learned today tie together into this? Now, how does it work? Now, the first thing, like I told you, JavaScript is a functional language. Okay, let's start away from the HTML. Okay, now this is the HTML. We already know what is happening, and then over here we have div class equal to card. Of course, this card does not mean anything to HTML, but in my CSS it means something. I have used it to style that particular. I've already used it to style that particular element, so that's just why I used it there. So H3 student grade what processor. You can see it here. You can see it over here. Then grade processor, and we then say button dot on click. Button on click. On click is an event. We're going to be looking at. I think we're supposed to look at JavaScript events next. Yeah, I think that's what we're supposed to look at in the next class, in the next session. So button on click equal to calculate what? Results. This method on click is an event equal to this is the JavaScript function that is going to execute whenever this button is clicked. And we have here run calculator script. Then I now have div id equal to output class equal to what? Result. Results will be what? displayed here. So we have just said that you see there was nothing special we did here. The only thing we introduced that we introduced an event here, the onClick event in JavaScript. And by introducing the onClick event in HTML. Now with that, we also have other events. We have onFocus, we have onClick, we have onBlur, we have onKeyUp, onKeyDown, onKeyPress. We have a whole lot of events that in JavaScript, which are all mouse and keyboard events that take place. Even on page load, these are all events that take place in a that take place in your browser. So it helps to provide more interactivity for your end user. Perfect. So let's continue. Well, I think we're supposed to look at events next. Maybe in the next section you understand what onClick and all of that is doing here, and say class equal to result. Okay. So now this result, you see we created ID equal to output because we're going to use this. We're going to be updating the content of our calculation here for people to see. Of course, this is just our normal CSS that contains all the designs that we need to be able to build whatever it is for the looks and the whole presentation of our software. Okay, now this is where we're really focused on the JavaScript side. Now if you come here, you see that function that we mentioned here. You see this function here, function calculate. You see calculate results. You can see it here. You can see over here in JavaScript we now created, of course, yes, I didn't tell us this is the script tag. Like I told us, this is the tag that is used to introduce an external JavaScript or to run inline JavaScript in your code. Yes, this is the tag that you use. If you are running the code, if you are writing the code here, the code will appear in between these two script tags. But if you are not, you are referencing an external script, which is what I recommend you always do. You are going to have src equal to js equal to the location of that particular script. Yes, in relation to that particular HTML document. And it is always advisable that you put this code tag just before your closing body tag. So as the page would have finished loading, the HTML will finish loading. This is also for performance purposes. Your HTML will finish loading before your JavaScript will not lag your page behind or slow down your page from loading because of it has not finished loading. And also, in case there are any functions to execute, let it be clear that all the whole document has loaded, and then those functions can execute without errors. Now we have function calculate result, and we say let's call input equal b equal prompt enter. Now you know we said the prompt keyword. Like I told you, you use the prompt when you want to. In our manual, I told us, I say you use the prompt in JavaScript among the display methods. You can see we use the prompts only when the prompt is useful to us when we want to collect a particular feedback from the user. You can see the prompt method here. Okay, what we are going to look at, yes, you can see the prompt method over here. So when we come in here, prompt, all you need to do is to tell the user, once you enter prompt, you say prompt, tell the user what you are expecting from them. It's going to display in the prompt, like you can see here. If I click this button now, if I click here, you see the prompt comes up. I can cancel it or I can press OK. Do you understand? If I run the calculator, the prompt pops up and I can type whatever I want to type. I can type 50. Okay, if I type 15, is a performance rating grade C pass. Okay, the person can, in the form, can also work here. So now we enter student score. So you see that's all I needed to do. You see, as soon as I clicked it, you can see it here, enter student score in brackets 0 to 100. That's the next thing that appears to you, 0 to 100. Okay, now that's okay. And then you move further and then say let's score equal to pass float. Remember I told you that the pass float function, what does it do? It converts whatever that was entered by the user, that whatever that was usually user input, but the pass float is actually used to convert anything that was entered, a string, into a floating point number. That's a decimal number. You know that average that is being calculated by this particular calculator can actually come in decimal places. So that is the job. And then when I say if it's not a number, you can see where we are using the isNames function, and you can see where we use this operator, the OR operator. I told you that if the expression here or the expression here returns true, the code is going to work. It returns false, returns true. So if any of these two guys return true, it will pass. This code will be executed. That is allowed to be executed. But if none of them returns true, that is when it is going to tell you false. So what do we do here? We say if isNames score, if it's not a number in bracket score, or the score is less than 100, the score cannot be less than 0, the score cannot be less than 0, or the score is greater than 0, the score cannot greater than 100, the score cannot be greater than 100. 100 is the benchmark, the maximum bound, the upper class boundary. Alert: invalid input. Please enter a valid number between 0 and what? 100. Then you return. Are you getting me? It brings the user back. So let us try that out. Let us say I enter A now. Try it. Let's enter THE and click OK. You see what you say. Invalid input. Please enter what? A number. The code is not going to what? Execute. It will tell you return. Now when I come down further, you can see us declaring our variable. Now this let is what we are using to declare variables all across the program. So you can say let grade equal to double quote. Oh, so sorry, this var that is being depreciated. Let is the current keyword being used being used in JavaScript for declaring variables. You see how a variable is declared. Let grade. Grade is the name. That's why we say the variable is the named location in memory, or is a named location in memory where a programmer stores a particular value for easy retrieval later. So we say let grade equal to null. We put the semicolon. If score greater than or equal to 70, grade is equal to A. You can see that we're now running an if statement here. Else, if score greater than or equal to 60, grade is equal to B. Else, if score, you can have as many else if as you want in this statement here, but you can also do this with a switch statement too. But in this case, an else if is better since we want to have a range of values. For a switch statement, it is always important that you are specific, that it has to be a constant. You can't use a range in a switch statement. It must be a constant. Else, grade equal to F, fail. Okay, so we move further. Let stars equal to null. We have put the stars as null. Demonstration iteration 1. Say for let I equals 0 equals 0. You see that this is our loop. We say I less than max.floor, score divided by 10. Okay, you put this and I plus plus. So you divide whatever that was entered in this score by 10, and at the end of the day, when you divide it by 10, you run it off. Whatever you round off, you round it off to the nearest integer. Okay, I plus 10, and then you say star equal plus equal star. You can see where we're using that assignment operator, but like I told us, try to not use it as much as possible. Then we can now go further and say document.get element by ID. You see the element we are getting by ID is this output. Div ID equal to what? Output. You can see it here. You can see it over here. Document.get element by ID output dot inner HTML. I already showed us dot inner HTML that I say we use this when you want to write into a HTML document, not to clear the document but to write into it. Plus calculated score dot to fixed. You fix the an integer plus assignment grade, this, and then plus performance rating $star. So this is exactly how this code works. But you see, JavaScript is a language that is a very broad programming language, and as you get to use it for doing more meaningful and reasonable things, you will find it much more satisfying and better. Like I said, our manuals are always attached to our videos. So when you are watching our videos, if you don't understand it, you can download our manual, and you can also follow our manual. And as you follow our manual, you can also follow our video, and that way it will make it easy for you to understand, and you can also be able to write much more better codes than this. Is that clear? Okay, good. So this is exactly how it works. Now, thank you so much for today's class. Thank you for joining us in this session. We have been able to introduce you to the fundamentals of JavaScript. Like I encourage you, please try your best to read our manuals that we always make available or with every video. Read our manuals, those manuals that we take time to prepare those manuals, so we ensure that those manuals can actually be beneficial to you. Read our manuals in case you don't understand something in the video. Maybe the video is kind of too fast for you. You could also get our manuals and also read the manual and follow up with the manual, and you will still get the desired results. I want to thank you for joining us for this particular section. See you in the next section. Thank you. I still remain your formidable host, Okolochi Prince, the senior ICT instructor, or you can call me your friendly instructor. Thank you and have a lovely day.